Maddie Groves is a long way from home. Half a world away from the media firestorm she ignited earlier this year when she tweeted about perverts in Australian swimming.
Underwater with Maddie Groves.
Groves goes again, pushing hard for the wall. Groves is going to get there first. Oh, we're in good shape.
The 26-year-old butterfly star has largely avoided the media since her bombshell tweet and instead focused on international competition. Until now.
Silver for Australia. Maddie Groves with silver. Absolutely nothing between.
Can I ask you firstly about your tweet in June of this year? You withdrew from the Olympic trials as a lesson to, quote, misogynistic perverts in sport and their bootlickers. What were you referring to in that tweet?
I think I was referring to basically the years of, frustration and disappointment that I'd experienced from the time that I'd really got involved in swimming as a junior and witnessing sort of a variety of misconduct and, misogyny, body shaming, perversion, I guess, and that seemingly nothing has really changed in over a decade that I've been involved in the sport.
Can you take me through the detail of the types of misconduct that you're talking about?
I remember very clearly being told when I was 12 was probably the first time that I was complimented for losing weight, which I distinctly remember thinking was strange because I was 12. And really from that time, nothing changed. It just really felt like a free-for-all from all staff and coaches at sort of every level of competitive sport to make these sort of inappropriate comments about young girls' bodies, and that is perverted to me.
What sort of inappropriate comments? Can you give me some examples?
It almost felt like at times you were chastised for going through puberty and gaining weight and growing boobs and, growing a bum and hips and things like that, that was sort of seen as you were, failing at your commitment to swimming because you were gaining weight when you were just developing in a normal way. And when we were asked to go and weigh ourselves, I would basically go and hide in the bathrooms or go and hide like in another part of the pool area so that I wouldn't have to do it or they wouldn't be able to find me. There was sort of constant judgment on what we were eating. And I specifically remember on a training camp in New Zealand, I would have been 13 years old, and we weren't allowed to go into the dining room and eat without our coach being there to sort of witness that we were eating the correct meals. On a few occasions, me and a few of my friends would sneak into the dining rooms early and basically steal bread and shove it into our pockets.
So you were hungry?
Yeah, there were, I guess, times that I didn't realise that I really was starving myself.
5 seconds, you're away.
Her coach was Michael Palfrey. Apart from controlling her diet, she says he also made sexist comments.
There was a pretty consistent attitude that women were just emotional, high-maintenance beings that were unable to cope with pressures of high-performance sport, and that it was some sort of inherent failure of women, that we weren't built to handle these pressures and somehow weren't capable.
200 free, we had a very good heat.
Groves also alleges that Michael Palfrey, quote, manhandled her, sometimes leaving bruises.
It just was this thing that happened by the coach where it seemed like when they got very excited, they would just grab you or grab your shoulder, grab your neck, grab your arms and sort of slap you and shake you in a way that was sort of done as a playful thing. It did leave bruises sometimes. It would just be someone pinching you and that sort of thing would leave a bruise, or they would sort of slap you, and obviously this fully grown man wouldn't realise the strength that they had sometimes, and it would leave marks.
In a statement, Swimming Australia said it was unaware of Groves's complaints about Palfrey until it was contacted by 7:30. It had referred the allegations to the independent complaints body Sport Integrity Australia. It said, given it is now an ongoing investigation, it would not be appropriate to comment further. Palfrey said he didn't wish to prejudice the investigation by making a public comment. In 2010, Groves travelled to Samoa to compete in the Oceania Swimming Championships. A decade later, she would tweet about her experience. In November 2020, she tweeted, "We didn't really have a Me Too moment in swimming, but just realising maybe it was this weirdo staring at my tits when I was trying to swim." She said she made a complaint a few years ago about a person who stared at her while she was wearing her swimming costume. Are you comfortable telling me who this coach is?
The coach that I'm talking about is Glenn Berringen, who was Petria Thomas's coach, and obviously being a butterflyer myself, Glenn was presented as a very important person that had coached one of my heroes, and if I wanted to be like my hero Petria Thomas, that I should go along with Glenn's advice and basically tolerate his behaviour.
Berringen was the head coach on that trip to Samoa.
As a 15-year-old, I was sent to a foreign country, basically alone with no real support network, having this strange man be the one that was going to look after me. And yeah, it was this noticeable pattern of this person always wanting to talk to me as soon as I had gotten into my togs. There was sort of seemingly no interest in speaking to me when I was clothed and getting ready beforehand, but as soon as I was in my togs, it was sort of the time where this person wanted to take me away from the group and have these intimate conversations with me and standing very close to me, sort of inside my personal space, and really standing over me and staring and almost like leering at me and just blatantly staring at my breast, basically. So at times not even trying to make eye contact with me, and there would be touching of, my arm, touching of my lower back, and sometimes they would adjust my strap as well. And it just seemed so blatant that I just thought that other people would know what was going on, and if it was a problem that they would do something about it. But that didn't happen.
In 2011, Groves decided to take a break from swimming.
By the time I was 15, I just felt so incredibly burnt out and overwhelmed and just discouraged by the sport that it just wasn't something that I wanted to do anymore. And I guess feeling, left feeling suicidal at such a young age was because my life was swimming. Sorry.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I guess I was left feeling like that because my whole world was swimming. It was something that I did every single day, and I was really felt like I was made to felt like every decision I made, whether I was at the pool or not, was going to have a bearing on whether I was ever going to be successful in life.
After a year off, she says the lure of a chance to compete at the Olympic Games was too great.
I really believed that I could make an Olympic team, and it was something that I wanted to, have a go at. And I guess I just felt like those other things about the pressure and the body shaming and the misogyny were just sort of things that I had to accept if I wanted to be an Australian Olympian.
In 2017, the Australian Swimmers Association ordered an independent review of 2 trips to Europe by the Australian swimming team.
I remember when this review was announced that many of us swimmers, when we were speaking to each other, we had said that one of the things that we would complain about was Glenn Beringen's conduct. And it sort of felt like this was the opportunity for people to maybe raise this through this independent review, and hopefully, because it was an outsider doing the review and handing the report to Swimming Australia, they would sort of have to do something about it.
And was it?
Well, the report was never made public, so we don't know exactly what the findings or recommendations were.
And what did you think of that at the time?
I wasn't surprised that nothing happened. You sort of, as an athlete, you're used to being ignored and disregarded.
I think there's going to be some exciting performances this
The ABC understands Swimming Australia spoke to Berringen about the complaints. He continued to work as a senior national junior coach. 2017 was a difficult year for Groves. She successfully defended an anti-doping rule violation charge. She was diagnosed with 2 chronic illnesses which required surgery, and she struggled to keep up with training for the 2018 Commonwealth Games. At the same time, she says she was battling Swimming Australia over funding.
I somehow still managed to make the team for the 50 metres and 100 metres butterfly. And I was really, really proud of myself that despite really going through the darkest time in my career and really some of the most vulnerable times of my life, feeling like any support I thought existed around me was a lie.
Lane 4.
And how did you go at the Games?
Yeah, it went well. I did end up winning a silver medal in the 100 butterfly and a bronze medal in the 50 metres butterfly.
1, 2, 3 Australia. The sweep.
For the next 3 years, Groves continued to train and compete. But just before the trials for the Tokyo Olympics, she dropped the bombshell tweet that rocked Australian swimming. What sort of a response did you get to your tweets from others in the swimming world?
I really had a overwhelmingly positive and supportive response to my tweets in June. I don't know what I expected at the time, but I certainly didn't anticipate just like the sheer volume of people that would reach out to me. It was athletes, staff, coaches, from Australia and abroad, both swimmers and non-swimmers that had contacted me, basically expressing that they understood what I was talking about and often shared, some really upsetting stories with me about their experiences in swimming.
And what sort of stories were you hearing from these people?
There was many different stories. A lot of stories from recent years about people, feeling fat shamed and struggling with eating disorders and body image issues, but also some really awful stories about, sexual assault and abuse and, a few stories talking about, I guess, being raped as well. And yeah, some really serious incidences that sort of none of these people felt like they were looked after when they had those things happen to them.
In late June, Groves met with Swimming Australia CEO Alex Bauman and President Kieran Perkins and their lawyers.
It was a very interesting meeting to me because it was really the first time that Alex had shown any interest or care for what I was going through.
And did they ask you what you were referring to in those tweets?
The legal representative asked what I was referring to. Kieran really just seemed like he was in the room as a box-ticking exercise. He barely looked at me. He didn't shake my hand when we walked into the room. He didn't ask me any questions or, show any concern for me. It was really just, I guess, the legal representative trying to get information out of me.
And what did you tell them at that meeting?
I guess I was pretty brief on details at that point. Like I had expressed sort of my disappointment and I had told them about, by the end of the meeting, we did discuss sort of the tweet that I had made about Glenn Berringen as well.
And did they say that they would investigate that?
Yes, they did say that they would investigate my tweet about Glenn Berringen.
In a statement, Swimming Australia said it appointed an independent investigator to review her complaint. 3 months later, it was found to be unsubstantiated. Swimming Australia said as part of a routine high-performance review following the Tokyo Olympic Games, Swimming Australia determined the role of national youth coach was no longer required for the next Olympic cycle, and accordingly, Mr Berringen's contract was not renewed. The ABC made repeated requests for a response from Mr Berringen. Today he sent us an email saying the allegations were malicious and untrue. He said he'd fully cooperated with the independent investigation, which concluded that the claims were unfounded. Groves said at the June meeting they also discussed the appointment of an independent panel to review her complaints about a toxic culture in swimming. Did they give you any sense of what that would involve?
No, they really didn't. It felt more like a PR exercise and like a damage control thing rather than, a genuine concern for what I was talking about, or like they were really taking the investigation seriously.
What was it that made you think that?
I guess because there was no detail as to what this panel was going to investigate, and really no clarity around the obligations they had to report abuse that they might be made aware of. There was no clarification around whether the final report, which would be made public or not, which I don't believe it will be. There was just really, I guess, confusion around the parameters of the investigation itself.
Swimming Australia's new CEO, Eugenie Buckley, declined to do an interview with 730. In a statement, the sport's governing body said it was committed to improve the sport to ensure it was a safe and thriving environment for all swimmers, from the grassroots through to the elite level. It said the independent panel would make its recommendations early next year, and Swimming Australia would continue to work with Sport Integrity Australia to improve its processes.
He'd initially asked for cuddles, and then he'd want to be kissed.
My dreams were destroyed by this horrible man.
It was after watching 730's expose on former elite swimming coach John Wright that Groves decided to divulge an even darker secret.
I think seeing the report on the John Wright case, there's sort of this attitude that that type of thing is a historical issue and it doesn't happen anymore, and that times have changed. But I don't think that's necessarily true, because when I was underage, I was on multiple occasions, I was actually molested by an adult male. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not going to say who this person is, but they still work in swimming and stuff. I guess at the time, I didn't feel like there was anyone I could tell about that. And there's no one in swimming that I would trust disclosing that to now either. So when people say times have changed and that they would handle things differently now, I don't think there's any trust in that.
Have you made a complaint of any sort about this individual?
No, I haven't made a complaint about this individual. I guess my experience from trying to make complaints about other people in sport was so discouraging. It really didn't leave me feeling that making a complaint about this person would be any different to the others.
So do you plan to make some sort of a report now?
I don't think I really want to report it to the police. It's obviously a huge process, emotionally, and yeah, it's an uncomfortable thing to have to talk about and deal with, but it's not my fault, and I guess hope that by speaking about this stuff that it is taken seriously and that there are, protections put in place. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, take a break. Take a break. Maddie, just finally, why are you speaking out? Why have you decided to step forward and take on this role?
I guess I decided to speak out because, you know, I'm coming to the end of my career now, and it really doesn't feel like much has changed since I was growing up. It just really seems like there is this vicious cycle of, I guess, using and abusing female athletes until they're burnt out and broken. And I just feel like if I didn't speak out, like if there's not a proper investigation into the culture of this sport in Australia, that cycle is just going to continue forever.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.